Hello and welcome to today's webinar for the new Just Planet product update regarding the dialog redesigns that we did and the introduction of custom filters and a few other small enhancements. As always, this is a go-to webinar and all attendees are automatically muted to optimize the quality of audio and prohibit any background noises that you guys might have to interfere with the quality of the webinar. But if you do have a question, please ask them via the GoToWebinar chat box and we will take a look at them throughout the webinar and at the end to answer those questions. Now, my name is Jan Vierguts. I am the development lead for Just Planet and your host. And basically, let's have a look what we did with this release. So, this is Just Planet, as you know, and if you take a quick look immediately in the filter selection up here, I have selected the new addition to the filter categories called Custom Filter. If you take a quick look, this is all the known filters that you guys already have and use. And now at the bottom, we added the Custom Filter. Now, as you can see, this can be empty. This simply means no filter is active. And when you guys first use this without setting them up and select them, you will not find anything in this drop down here. As we can see, I have prepared 3 of those filters. Now, let's quickly run through them, what they do. The first one I have called late, and all that means is this filters down to all the jobs that have their due date exceeded, so that I can take an immediate look. And if you think about it, this is basically just the same thing as selecting the previous due date filter and selecting the exceeded option, and you will get the same result. So this one isn't as fancy, except that I got to name it. But now let's take a deeper look into the other 2. For example, late September 21. What this now did is it filtered to all tasks and belonging to jobs that have their due date in September of 2021 and are late. And we will take a closer look on how to set those up in a minute. Just wanted to show you the last one we already did and tell you what this was supposed to do. So again, this concatenates the combination. Is this after the 1st of September but before the 1st of October and is late? And the last one, keeping with the theme, show me all late jobs for the customers A and B. And as we can see here, and the tooltip shows up, this is now for customer B, and this one is for customer A. And I now see all the jobs late for those 2 customers. Now, how are we setting those up? If you go to the Settings tab and onto the wrench icon, you will see the Settings dialog come up. And if you hit Custom Filters here, you see the list with all custom filters I have already created. Now let's take a quick look how a custom filter looks like. So this is the custom filter late, and as we see, it only has 1 row. Not that surprising, because all we did is ask, is the due date exceeded? Yes. And if I would put this to no, we would get a new functionality that we didn't have before. We could exclude all jobs which have their due date exceeded. So we would only see the jobs that are already on time. The and or column we will take a closer look at in the next filter, because for this one line it doesn't really make a difference. Now next we took a look at the late September 21 filter. And how is this built? This basically and connects all 3 rows. So we want to see tasks and jobs which due date is before the 1st of October and which due date is after or equal to the 1st of September. And we want them to have their due date exceeded. Now, as you can see, what we can do here immediately, we do have now the opportunity to filter for specific due dates. And we can do them with multiple comparators instead of just connecting them via, for example, equalization. We can, in this case, for the dates, ask, is it equal? Is it smaller than? Is it greater or equal than? And the same is true for, if we take a quick look here, we will find basically all existing fields and can ask the corresponding questions. So for example, for text fields like the customer name, we will see if I select this will automatically remove the previous setups here because they do no longer apply. And if we take now a closer look in the comparators, we could now enter a value and check for equality, check for unequality, meaning that the word or text that I enter here is not equal to whatever entry we have. And we could also select a contains filter, meaning we would only need to enter a substring or a sub part of the name and would still get the results. Now let me quickly cancel out of this so to not mess with it, and let's take a closer look at the customer filter that we already prepared. And here I've gone for equality. The important part in this one, where the other one was completely AND connected, we now have OR connections. Because what we want is the customer A or B, and is the due date exceeded? So what we learn from this is that all the custom filters are stronger connect with an OR against an AND. So what I mean by that is, what I've done here is I basically built a sub-filter with the customers. Is any of these true? And connected that with the OR, and then check the due date exceeded. And that would work if the due date exceeded is down below, or, and that is also nice information for you, if you want to edit your filters, you do not have to remove the lane or all the lanes. You can switch the position of a specific lane. And what I then need to do is I need to change the wording here, because now I want to know, is the due date exceeded and is the customer name either A or B? Those two filters are now equivalent, but they are different setups. And what you can also do, for example, if we create a new filter here and say, I want to know which of these jobs are, and I'm coming back to late to keep the theme, late on my finishing resource, or more specifically on my packing in this data set. And if I now click here, we see an empty filter. And if I now add a new row and say, okay, I want all the tasks belonging to a specific group, which would be packing. And as we already decided, all of those which are late. I would advise to first build the filters, click outside so that everything is set up the way the system needs it, and then either move around and build the concatenators. In this case, this is fairly simple. We need to AND connect these. The connectors always refer to the next line in the grid. So in this case, it would connect the resource group and the due date exceeded queries. So that, of course, means that the last entry, it doesn't matter what you put in here. And if we now click OK on those, we'll see it quickly loads something. We then go into the Understand Schedule tab, open here, and we now see, okay, we now have an option for late packing. And we again see all jobs that are late. But from those jobs, we only see the packing tasks, which are the last part of this. You will see the finishing component here, and you will see the explicit packing task and nothing else And this is, for example, if you want a quick look not at the plan itself, but just want to see the state of your plan or the late deliveries. When are they coming in? Quick and focused view. What you could also do with those custom filters is basically build a new resource group or resource view for you, that in which you select you want to only see this or these specific resources or groups and have them categorized as filters, and then you will always only see those setups. For example, if we deselect the filter here so we can see everything, if we only want to see the saw operators and the sawing, we could make a custom filter here, call that saw overview, add the resource group saw operators and the resource group or the resource group sawing, and we would see only those two with the corresponding tasks. Coming off from this, what we can also see is that our saw operator is fairly lonely and needs to do basically everything himself. And this brings us to the next thing. How do we change this? How do we update this now with the new dialogues? Because as we can see, this is clearly the case. He alone is not able to completely book two machines. So if we go to update, we immediately see that we now have a lot of icons here. And all of those icons basically help you quick refer to the things that you want to update. In our case, we want to update resource groups. And now we have the new multi-purpose dialog that allows you to manage all your scheduling data in one place. And clicking on the corresponding icons will simply open the corresponding tab that you want to go in immediately as a shorthand. So in our case, we said we wanted to update the saw operators and say, let's add Isabel to them. And if I now click OK, it will go through and everything's fine. But what we could also do is say, okay, if I now give Isabel additional responsibility, I will need to give her more work time, for example. For example, I could say she now needs to work till 5. Don't worry, she will get credit correspondingly. So if I now simply update this, go back here, and I'm back in the main dialog. And I could do, for example, I could also say, okay, looking at my schedule, I can now see that this job only needs to be done on the 17th. And what I've now done is I've changed a job, I've changed a resource group, I've changed a resource. I could even change templates and components, or, and that is also a completely new variant, I could change specific tasks. And with this, so in our case, we have a lot depending on components. So if I click edit now here, as you are used to in the task details dialog, this component is now or has now been broken up into its separate parts, allowing me to immediately change whatever I need or want to change in this. For example, I could say, okay, this needs to be done on Isabel. And what I've now done is I've changed 4 distinct objects in one go without any wait time between them, because all I did now was prepare the changes. I've not yet committed them, which I will do by clicking OK. And now you see your usual gray bar. It will get sent to the server. We will get the response back, which we now did, and immediately we see the source look pretty good. And we see that Isabel is also being loaded with works on the saw. And with this, you can really do a lot of updates on a lot of different objects throughout your entire plan without having to wait for the changes. So if we think about what happened, or what would I have needed to do 2 weeks ago before this release, I would have needed to go into the resource, go into the resource groups, add the resource to the resource group. Okay, loading. Then next, go into the resources, change the work time. Okay, loading. go into the jobs, and so on. And now you have one way to edit all your master data and your job data in one go. So we really expect that this helps you guys a lot to achieve more faster. But how do you qualify what you achieve if you do a lot of things at once? We also thought of that. What we added is a new functionality to the changed by last update method. And if I now click here, what you see here is a small overview how your latest changes impacted your plan. So adding Isabel to the saw operators basically is responsible that instead of 11 jobs late, which I had before, I now have 1, which is a delta of -10. Percentage, we have the information absolute and percentage-wise. We also reduce the total throughput time, which means the total time it takes for a job to get from start to finish, by roughly 1,000 minutes. But, and you could see that as a good or a bad thing, we increased our buffer time because we now have a lot of jobs done way earlier. So with this, you really get a quick notification how your latest change or your latest changes have impacted your plan to help you better categorize if that was a good thing or a bad thing that you just did. Quick note, if you are just loading in, you will see no data here because this only measures the data for your current session. So your first change will then fill this diagram. And of course, if you click here, it gets closed off again and you are back into your full plan. Now, what we've also added on request of a couple of you guys actually is a new role in the customer or a new user role. Because we heard from a couple of you guys that you actually would like to be able to share your plan with your customers, giving them access to see when their jobs are being worked on or when they are done. And we've done that now because this brings a few challenges with it. Because of course you don't want to see them to be able to see everything. You don't want them to be able to change anything. And you basically just want them to see the information that you want them to see. And for that, we added the new external permission. So if we either create a new user here or take a look at the user details, I've put this account to external and told them, okay, you're only allowed to see Gary and Harry. And why did I select those two? Those two are basically the guys responsible for packing up. Those two handle the last step of all of our orders. And I know you work for customer A, so I only want you to see the things for customer A. Now, let's see what he would see. So this is, and just as a proof, I am signed in with with Jan Vierguts at justplanet.com. And as we can see, this is immediately drastically shorter. And as we can also see, I'm allowed to do nothing except log out. So the only thing I currently see here is the components used and the packing. So all I can actually see is when is my stuff done. And I can only see what you guys set up that I'm allowed to see. We also reduced the amount of information in the tooltips, both for on job level and on task level, to only contain timing informations. So for example, this seems a bit small. Let's hover over the packing here, and we can only see the name, the job it belongs to, is it started, planned, or done, and when it's supposed to be done. And this is all the information that an external user can view. Again, you can set this up, and going back into the main account, you can set this up under settings in your user management. Of course, if you add a new user, you can immediately assign them as external. One quick thing regarding the resources, because we had this question a couple of times. It might be that because you have long-standing accounts that you, for whatever reason, had a resource filter here active and are now not seeing your current resources because you added new ones but did not update your filters. So you can do that in the settings tab under the user management to actually take a look if you hear that from one of your guys. And if you want them to be able to see everything, just remove any filter there or update them accordingly. Just as a quick side note. Well, that's basically it for this release. Good news for you guys. We did actively also work on enhancing the functionality that I just showed you, and will make a new release very early, probably within the next week, allowing you to also have the same design for the edit dialogues everywhere. We enhanced the settings dialog. We enhanced basically everything I just showed you is what we're currently working on. We're getting that out fairly soon. Let's see if there are any questions or comments from you guys. If not, I will be available for the next couple of minutes to react to those questions. I hope you had a good time, and thank you very much for your kind attention. If there is anything you want us to know, just send an email either to me directly or to support@justplanet.com. We're always happy to receive feedback and hear from you guys. So with that, have a great day.